okay, we were setting up to record, and you just casually tossed off as we were about to press record.
Mm-hmm.
Something along the lines of, I just updated the weekly challenge in our game.
Yeah.
And I was a bit gobsmacked, because when you describe a process like that, I assume it requires like 3 engineers and an hour of each person's time to do something like that. And instead, it sounds like you maybe like changed one value in a backend. And really, I just want to talk about your game's backend.
So, wow, that sounds filthy when you put it that way. So I went to a control panel. This is the Anacrusis we're talking about. It's available on Steam and Xbox. You can get it for $20.
Oh, you don't say.
It's a Left 4 Dead
yes.
co-op shooter where you shoot aliens. Made by the Chet Falasek, the lead.
Tell me more.
At Valve for Left 4 Dead, and we just rolled out versus mode a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
So updating the backend is very exciting. I go to a web page. Mm-hmm. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
Yeah. And then I click on a thing that says game records. Okay. And then it opens up a page that has a text field in there that's got a bunch of JSON in it for all the stuff that we can configure outside of the game without having to make a build. So like we've actually done a bunch of, like, we have some special, like some enemy spawns are in there, so we can juice up the rarer enemies on special occasions if we want. We can turn on and off things like vote kick and features that we weren't sure were going to work right when we rolled them out, so we didn't have to do a new build to fix them. Mm-hmm. But in there also is the current weekly challenge. So I scrolled down until I got to the part where it says weekly challenge. And then I took the number that was in the weekly challenge slot and added 1 to it, and I hit save.
Okay.
And then from the moment I did that, the next person who connected to the server to set up matchmaking was in.
Magic. I consider myself a connoisseur and aficionado of content management systems.
This is not a good one.
Having I was going to get to that. Having worked on websites for as long as I have been putting content into forms. Yes. And pressing publish for over 20 years.
And you've been there, like, just to be clear, for people who like use WordPress today, what a CMS looked like when you started out at GameSpot or I was working at Maximum PC is not what you would like. They were not good. Like, I became acquainted with the term rsync like 20 years before my recent like Unix open source stuff. Yeah. Because the original GameSpot CMS like exposed the rsync process as assets were being pushed to the website. We had producers, we had people whose entire jobs it was to take articles and screenshots and turn them into articles on the thing, because even the CMS that was built by the corporation for that was too technical for normal people to do. Well, it's funny. We always used to laugh at you all for having people that did that work for you, because we had in magazine world, we had to do that because they didn't care enough to put employees on, that kind of work. But like, well,
I mean, because I was mostly doing previews where we were like trying to compete to be first with all the information. B, just because it's me and my personality, I actually went and learned all that stuff myself, the stuff the producers did, and stopped sending content to them and just started doing all the markup and stuff myself just to get because, you had to send it over there and they might have a backlog and you might ask them to like, hey, this is priority. Can you get this done quicker? But like, it was way faster to just do it myself.
But I mean, it's important to note, we're not talking about like typing it into a field and uploading some pictures. Like you had to make the thumbnails. You had to size all the images manually. You had to often place HTML tags in for the images that referenced where the image was going to be on the server when you put it there, because it probably wasn't there yet.
Yes, correct.
And like there was a bunch, like it was weird. When I was working at ours, we used Front Page, which was really funny when I think about it now, but it was a WYSIWYG editor and it would handle all the uploads, but it was also really stupid because if 2 people edited the Front Page file, there was no way to lock the file on the server side. So if 2 people were in that file at the same time, whoever saved last would erase the other person's work.
Had that experience many times.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about it before, but getting to Whiskey Media and seeing the editor that those guys had built, It was like a top 5 in my career moment of like, holy shit, this is the future. Like, oh my God, I'm working with some incredible people.
That was
not to say that there were not a lot of incredible people at GameSpot, but like corporate bureaucracy and, like building new things at a giant corporation is a very different thing than it is a little startup.
Well, yeah. And it's funny because I think I actually made fun of when the AOL Engadget folks left AOL to go start The Verge, and I think it was Josh Topolsky was like, one of the things that made us want to move is we looked at their CMS and it was the best CMS we'd ever seen. And I was like, okay, so I would never say that publicly because you sound like a doofus. But also, I totally get it because I had the same exact reaction because we'd moved from Drupal, which was like relatively up to date and current and like WYSIWYG, and you could drag and drop images and the whole thing in the editor. But seeing what Dave and Ethan and Andy and all those and Kuntz and all those guys had made at Whiskey was a whole different world. Mike Horn, shout out to Mike Horn too. Don't ever forget Mike Horn.
Yeah, a lot of people over there making that stuff go. That was an amazing tech shop.
Yeah, it was well, and they were building it good because they wanted it. Like a lot of times in corporate America at that time, especially, you'd get something that was good enough, and they just built something that was good because also it was users used it too. Like,
yes,
like
is that like the ultimate dog fooding, basically? That like, in fact, I remember that being a selling point when I got there. It was like, hey, the editor you guys are using to put content on the website is the same editor like everybody else is going to use for forum posts and wiki content, and like, yeah.
Well, it's one of those things. It's funny. We had the same thing happen with the Anacrusis. Like we built the game and then we added mod tools after it had been out for about 6 months, right? So that people could download a special version of Unreal Ed and make hats and player skins and all that stuff. And the moment we built a pipeline into the mod tool side to add hats to the game, adding hats to the game became infinitely easier for the artist. And all of a sudden they were like, I'm going to make a Valentine's Day hat this year. I'm going to make some Christmas hats and like, you know, making the user facing pipeline something that normal people like I have put hats into the game, right? So I was able to go to Sketchfab, download some assets and put a texture on them and smack them up in the game. And they have blinky lights and the whole thing. Mm-hmm. It's making something that's user facing and accessible makes it easier and faster for everyone. Now, I will say users weren't allowed to update podcasts to the Whiskey Media thing. And when I asked Dave to put an hour, minutes, and seconds timer instead of just making me calculate how long a 2 hour and 20-minute podcast was in seconds, he said, well, you do that once a week and Ryan does that once a week and Rory does that once a week. So that's 3 people's time. It takes about 20 seconds to do it. It would take me a day to put that in. So you're going to keep calculating hours, minutes, and seconds in seconds.
I get it. it.
Yeah.
Real quick, 2 things. Is this Anacrusis backend? Is that something that like comes along with Unreal Engine, or is that something that y'all built yourself entirely?
So we work with a partner called Excelbyte. They handle, they help us with matchmaking and they run turn servers and stuff like that. They also host in order to do cross-platform matchmaking, you have to have some place that has a data store that lets you connect an Xbox accounts and Steam accounts, and they do all of that stuff. That's the reason we started out working with them, and then they have a bunch of other things that you can add on to that service. It's interesting because anybody that does cross-platform matchmaking, you're going to have a third-party account, which means there's GDPR requirements and CCPR requirements from California, which, you know, it's nice to have somebody manage. It also means that you have to check that little box on Steam that says this requires a third party account, even if you don't ever expose the account to users, which we don't. So people get upset and think you're going to make them do like a account for a service that they're not enthusiastic about.
Well, that's a big ouch. My other question. So it sounded like, did I understand correctly? You were just editing a big raw JSON form. It's not taking all those values and exposing them as nice, tidy little web UI elements.
It is an enormous JSON form.
Okay, that's good. Okay, sounds like the CMS has a little way to go.
Well, you know, all I know is that this week's weekly challenge is called No Safety, and it means that the airlocks are malfunctioning. So you have to hold off giant hordes of aliens while you wait for the doors to open before you can get to safety. Also, it's all maps where the airlocks are really super scary. So good luck.
Big thanks to Jason.
Shout out. Welcome to Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. I'm Will.
I'm Brad. Hello.
Hello. This week we got something a little bit unusual planned.
Do we?
I mean, it's not. We've worked in this realm before, but this is a new twist on the taste that we've done. We had, let's say, 2 to 3 topics that we didn't think would sustain a full episode. They're kind of follow-ups to things we've done in the past, talked about in the past, or updates. And we wanted to kind of delve in and, let people know what's going on with some of the stuff that we've talked about in recent weeks, either on the Patron episode or on Q&A or other places.
Yeah, some of the stuff is our topic. Some of these are topics, subject verb agreement.
Topics are hard.
That we've kind of only touched on casually. Like we're going to talk about Wireguard here because we've both been working with that a good bit lately. But I think we only casually talked about that on the Patron episode this month. I don't think we've ever even covered that one.
In the past, I have said that Wireguard is good, which I stand by.
Yes. I've always known it was good conceptually, but I never had a functional enough setup to say so in practice. But now I do, and it rules.
Yeah. For people who don't know, Wireguard is a lightweight VPN that you can run to give you an easy way to connect to your house safely so that you don't have to have a bunch of ports with services that may or may not be super secure exposed to the internet.
Yeah. What else are we talking about today?
So I did my 4th or 5th maybe 6th now long road trip with the Bolt. We're 2.5 years into having this thing, and I wanted to the last time we talked about it was a fair amount of time ago, and things have changed a little bit. Some things are better, some things are worse. It was interesting because this time we drove during the hottest summer on record through areas that were 120 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 50 degrees Celsius-ish. It's pretty hot. So we're going to talk about that, talk about what we've learned. I have some questions for the community, and we're like I said, we're 2.5 years into a 3-year lease on this car. I think at this point, both my wife and I are pretty committed to the electric car lifestyle.
Sure. I didn't realize it was decision time.
Yeah. And we're thinking about what's next, and I want to get a little feedback from the audience on that. And what else you got, Brad?
Well, you proposed this, but I have material here. A little coffee update. A couple weeks after the cough, I'm a couple weeks into daily cold brewing, and I thought I might briefly describe where I'm at with that and how it's going.
Yeah, I people really like the coffee episodes. We'll do some more food tech if folks are into it.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised at the response to the coffee episode.
I have been people that have asked about the bypass brewers, which we talked about in that episode a little bit. I am waiting. I've looked at what's available, and for what I make, I'm waiting for the next level pulsar brewer to come available, which is like a single serving bypass brewer. And when we do that, I'll report when that comes out. It's supposed to be released in August, which is now. So when that's out, I'll update it and I'll get an update, y'all.
Updates are good. I hope. Hopefully updates are good because we're about to do a bunch.
Yeah, let's get to it. What's going on? So you're okay. So for people, I don't even think we need to get into what we talked about in the Patreon episode, but
no.
I've been using Wireguard at home for like 3 years now as part of my home assistant install.
Oh, wow. I thought you just set it up recently.
No. I set it up before I went to Palm Desert the first time in 2021.
Oh, okay.
So that I could connect to my server and stuff inside the house without having to open a bunch of scary ports. And it's been absolutely flawless. I use it almost. The only time I messed up was when AT&T decided they were going to reset my router and I didn't turn the port back on for it. And then that was a problem, it turns out.
Yeah. It's pretty set and forget, I would say, from what I've seen so far. Should we talk about just the basics of what it is a little bit? I guess. What is your history with VPNs? My history with VPNs is like every big company I have worked for has required one of some nature, and they all suck to varying degrees and are a huge pain in the ass.
See, this is where Future and real companies separate each other. At Future, they were like, it's probably fine. Just open up some ports.
Wow.
I could call up until about 2005, I could call the IT guy and be like, hey, I need a public facing IP address with port 80 on it. And they'd be like, oh yeah, sure. Okay. I gotcha.
Yeah. Something that also just occurred to me. I say every company I have worked for, but actually they're all of the big companies I've worked for have just been various permutations of the same big company.
That's true. Yeah. Different incarnations,
different ownership and names. But there was always like some very annoying like Cisco VPN client you had to install on your work machine, or something that you had to use to access any resources at work. So like VPN became synonymous with something that was an extreme pain. And like, it would like the connection was not stable. It would like if the computer went to sleep, it might drop or something like that. It was extremely, and it was slow.
But it was never performant. We used IPsec for a long time at the end days of Future, and it was always slow.
Yeah. So Wireguard is like pretty new. It's like what, 5, 6, 7 years? It's sometime in the last
decade. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a much simpler VPN. It kind of acts more like the way SSH uses public and private key pairs, where all it's doing is encrypting the traffic going back and forth between two endpoints. There's no server concept. Everything is just a peer, quote unquote.
It's point to point. There's no multi-point, right?
Yes. Yeah. So you can do things like, we'll get into it. This is what I've done with it. You can do things where like you have a single peer behind your firewall, your router, and you can't access your whole LAN where that WireGuard peer is acting as sort of a gateway to everything else.
Yeah.
But as far as WireGuard is concerned, every connection is just two machines talking to each other. All it's doing is encrypting the traffic back and forth based on validating those public and private keys. So as long as that is set up, everything just works. And it's not like I don't know what kind of VPN you used. What the IPsec, like
IPsec was what we used at Future.
I don't know if that was wrapped in any like corporate client or anything like that. But I guess what I'm trying to explain, and it's been so long since I used some of those old VPNs, it's hard to characterize. But you always thought of it as like an active connection, something that had to be maintained. Something you had to like click a connect button and like go through a login and like hope the connection stayed up. And you know what I mean?
It almost worked like a modem login for a lot of ways.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to get at. Like WireGuard feels much more passive to me and in the background and seamless and just there and not something you actually have to think about.
Yeah, like if you put it on your phone or your iPad or whatever, you can literally set it up as a VPN entry in iOS and then just flip the VPN toggle on the settings page, and it'll run everything through that connection.
Right. And if things are set up well enough, it's performant enough and low overhead enough that you can kind of leave that connected all the time.
I often forget to turn it off when I don't need it anymore and don't notice for days.
Yeah. So I'm never going to turn it off, I think.
Really?
I think I'm getting to the point where I am just going to leave it on my phone all the time.
Well, I mean, that's kind of a thing now. Like if you subscribe to Apple's all-in-one, their souped up iCloud service that has music and games and Apple Arcade and all that stuff, then they'll give you an always-on VPN connection to mask your traffic to the larger to wherever you're connected through.
Interesting. That's cool.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
So there's like an official WireGuard client for Mac OS, for Windows, for iOS, et cetera, et cetera. But they all let you set up kind of inclusion exclusion rules for connections. Basically, like say, if I connect to any of these specific Wi-Fi SSIDs, connect automatically, or if I connect to any Wi-Fi that is not one of these SSIDs, connect automatically. If I go onto cellular, connect, you know what I mean? Yeah. So like what I'm saying is like, I can basically tell it like, okay, if my iPhone is on my home Wi-Fi, don't use it, obviously.
Yeah.
But the second I go out the door and that Wi-Fi disconnects and I drop to cellular, it knows to just connect.
Flips over.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
It's cool.
And the reason you would do this, there's two reasons you would do this. One is so that if you're on a public Wi-Fi, people can't snoop on your traffic, whatever you're doing, because your traffic all goes through your home network at that point. Two is so that you can access stuff inside your home network while you're not at home. So whether it's like a Home Assistant server without having to have the ports open, whether it's your Plex server, whether it's being able to remote into your machine, whether it's being able to access an SMB share on a Windows machine, even you can do all of that stuff with the remote client on the VPN. Okay, so what are you running? So I'm running this on a Home Assistant plugin. The install for that was literally going to the Home Assistant community store and searching for WireGuard and pressing install. And then I had to copy, I think I had to copy two files. One was a configuration file that's like a text config with the SSH key pairs. And then the other one is just a QR code that I aim a phone at, and it just magically sets up the connection inside the WireGuard app.
Yeah, there are a lot of different ways to set this up. I mean, you can do it like if you really want to get down in the weeds, you can set it up on just a basic Linux machine, but then you have to like, make sure the kernel module loads and do a bunch of configuration and stuff. But there are a bunch of much easier ways to set it up. A lot of people on our Discord really like Tailscale, which is a commercial service that they use Wireguard at the core. I've never used it, but I think they actually extend the concept and basically make like a mesh network of Wireguard peers, is my understanding. It is a commercial service, but they have a free tier.
Just to be clear, this isn't a sponsored conversation at all.
No. This is me having gone on the Discord a bunch of times talking about Wireguard and a bunch of people saying like, just use Tailscale. Like it's super easy. You should just use that. And I'm like, but I want to do it the hard way. Yes. Yeah. We have not used the service or had any interaction with it, but that is the recommendation. The free tier gives you up to 3 users, up to 100 devices. So there's that. If you want to check that out, there's if you have a Raspberry Pi you want to run this on, there's something called PiVPN, which is a little open source project that's I think it's kind of like a wizard sort of step through a bunch of choices type configuration and just go through it that way.
Is there a Pi? Is it part of the Pi installer, Pi OS installer?
No, it's a separate thing. You set it up kind of like Pi-hole.
Okay.
I mean, they're totally unrelated, but it's a similar kind of thing.
So you install Raspberry Pi OS and then grab a package from a repository someplace.
It's a couple of command line commands, but they tell you exactly how to do it. If you just go to pivpn.io. I haven't tried this one either, but this was another recommendation a lot of people had of like, if you want to run on a Pi, this will make that pretty easy.
Okay.
That's PiVPN. More and more router options are starting to have it built in.
Yeah, the DreamOS Ubiquity stuff, you can download it as a plugin, as I recall.
Okay. So yeah, pretty much all the all the sort of DIY router OSs that people use, like pfSense, OpenSense, ViOS, those all have it built in. Tightly integrated. I don't know what the state of like consumer level routers is yet. I don't know if any of the Netgears or the TP-Link Archers or anything are starting to include it or not.
I haven't. So the mesh, the Google Mesh ones don't have it. I have used those recently because my parents have those.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at the other third-party routers in a long, like consumer level routers in a long time.
Yeah, I'm guessing none of them have it built in like out of the box.
Or you'd have to do something weird like run like Tomato or OpenWRT or something like that.
OpenWRT is a big one. I want to say there might be another. Yeah, like if you flash an open source thing, you can do it that way. The other option is so if you do it on the router, it simplifies a lot of the routing and so forth because the router's already doing all the routing. If your router can't do it, you can run it behind your firewall on something like I'm doing it on a Pi 4.
Yeah, the only catch of running it behind your firewall on a Pi 4 is that you have to have different private IP addresses for each network.
Yeah.
Or else the routing gets weird. So like if you're on a away network that's 192.168.1. something and the home network is 192.168.1. something, sometimes that can be weird. Sometimes it works itself out.
So I felt a little smug because I changed my LAN's address range like 2 or 3 years ago for this exact reason, even though I didn't have VPN then.
Yeah, to 10.15 or something.
Yeah, because you can't be on somebody else's Wi-Fi that's using the same address range as yours. And like you said, every router out of the box uses 192.168.
Yeah.
Because the addresses will collide. You'll have the same address happening on their LAN and somewhere on your LAN, and it won't know what to do with itself. Right. So I haven't tried any of the like the PiVPNs, Tailscales, stuff like that handles all that stuff. I assume they help automate some of that stuff as well, but
I believe that the Home Assistant setup, when it does it looks at what your IP address is internally and sets up a different range for the WireGuard. And just to be clear, I think you can have. It's that the WireGuard and the adjacent networks can't be the same. I think that the two networks you're tunneling between may be able to actually be the same because they get translated through the WireGuard address.
Yes, that might be right. I've been doing a lot of networking setup with this stuff. I learned what IP masquerading is finally.
Wow.
In this process.
Yeah, that was a big one. That saved us from IPv4 pain a long time ago.
I finally made myself learn exactly how a subnet mask works, finally, permanently, for all time.
Yeah, you got to just keep adding zeros until it works. That's the plan.
Yes. Anyway,
I had Rod Bunn, who was my first boss out of college, sat down with me in front of a chalkboard at the University of Tennessee at the biology department one afternoon because I was like, I don't understand how IP addresses work. And he was like, okay, here you go. And he wrote down an IP address and then he put the subnet mask underneath it. And he's like, and he showed, he did 4 different IP addresses and 4 different subnet masks. So the way the subnet mask is basically saying, okay, we're limiting this block of numbers to this same block, right? So if it's a 255, that means if you have 192.168.1. whatever, then 255 is saying in the first set of numbers is saying that that it's always going to be 192. 255 in the second set of numbers is saying it's always going to be 168. 255 in the third set of numbers is saying it's always going to be the same number there, 1. If you put 0 there, it can be anywhere from 0 to 255, and you can change that number as you see fit.
255 means that octet, that number is fixed. 0 means it can be anything. It gets harder because there are different types of notation to express the same concept. Like there's the one you're talking about, but there's also
the /24.
There's the slash something like it. The thing I finally clued into is that slash whatever is the number of bits.
Yep.
Which is why you generally see it as a multiple of 8 because an IPv4 address is 4 8-bit numbers.
Yep.
So if it's like /24, that means 3 of the 4 octets are fixed and the last one generally is not, or whichever one is denoted by 0.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it has I mean, I guess it could be one of the other ones, but the routing won't work right then because you expect the router to be one. Anyway,
it gets weird because you can have non-standard. You can have like /20, which means like part of one of the. We shouldn't get into it.
No, this is a different episode.
I did not go that far in understanding it. Hopefully what this is communicating is that if you choose to set all this stuff up yourself, you're going to have to learn a lot of pretty low level networking stuff.
Yeah. My advice is just do the Home Assistant install. It's real easy.
Yes. I think just about anybody should use one of the easier options to set this stuff up. A lot of resources online to figure out how to do this stuff.
So I learned something interesting while I was away this time because I usually only use the VPN on my phone. I don't often use it on my computer, but I turned out to need to do some typing in terminals while I was gone. And in order to do that, I set up the VPN on my home machine. I'd only ever set up one tunnel before, though. And this makes perfect sense in retrospect, but you got to have a tunnel per machine if you want them to be connected simultaneously.
Yes.
And when you tried to connect 2 machines to the same tunnel at the same time, unsurprisingly, weird things happened.
I bet. By tunnel, you mean like literally both of the external clients were trying to be the same peer with the same IP address and everything?
From the same IP address also, yeah.
Okay, yes, I can see that.
It was not like I assume that the DNS mask on the router on one end or the other just didn't know what to do with what was coming in, and like you'd get it would work fine for about 2 minutes, and then it would be weird for a minute, and then it would work fine for about 2 minutes and be weird for a minute.
I could see that being an issue.
Yeah, turning off VPN on the phone solved the problem immediately.
Yes, I mean, I guess how you set this up is going to determine how much of this you even see. But the thing behind your firewall or your router, or whatever it is at home that you set this up on, its configuration will have a different peer section for each client you want to connect it to because they all need their own settings. So like I've got phone, tablet, and laptop, and each one of those is its own little peer configuration.
That stuff is exposed on the Home Assistant one in a text file, just in the config file for the Home Assistant install, and it's relatively easy to get into.
Got it. Let's see here. I probably shouldn't get into all of the very arcane routing stuff I had to do. I'm just running this on a Pi 4.
Did you get multicast to work? That was the other. Okay.
So I have not gotten there yet. I've been looking at it and thinking about whether I actually want to go through that pain or not. The basic explanation of what I'm doing is I'm running it on a Pi 4 because my router is too slow. Basically, like the throughput on doing it on my edge router is just way too slow. We should mention that like any VPN, there's encryption here. So the speed of the device you're running it on will determine what kind of throughput you're getting because it has to crunch all that encryption.
Well, and also specifically if you have hardware support for the encryption that Wireguard uses, which I think is AES 256, but I can't remember.
Yeah, it uses a bunch of cryptography that is supposedly, pretty selected for speed, for performance.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Pi 4 I've got is like an order of magnitude faster than the edge router for this. So I'm doing it on the Pi 4, but that means the Pi 4 has to be able to be mediator between the Wireguard network and my LAN. So that took a bunch of routing stuff that I had to set up that I had never done before, and it didn't work. And then it did.
This is a good project for learning how network stuff works.
That's exactly what this has been. Like, don't subject yourself to this if you don't care about any of this stuff. But I have absolutely come away from this like with a much better basic understanding of basic networking.
And I apologize. It is Cha-Cha 20 for symmetric encryption, not AES.
It's fun. If you go to wireguard.com, they straight up show you the white papers for how all this stuff works. If you just want to see the like academic description of all this stuff.
That's how encryption should work, Brad.
Yeah, but it's extremely well respected, I should say. Like every networking professional I know, or just generally the industry, this thing is seen as the gold standard for security in this space. But absolutely, all you have to do if you're running it behind your firewall, not on the firewall, all you have to do is open one port to point to whatever WireGuard is running on. And my understanding is, if the key pairs, the private and public keys, are not in place to do the authentication, it'll just reject any packet that comes from anything that doesn't have those in place. So it's like the attack surface is extremely small.
Yep. And like you said, one port. So, and it's a weird port that nobody else uses. You can also configure it to be whatever port you want.
Yeah. A couple other quick notes. You can, in the configuration, you specify like what ranges of addresses you want to be WireGuarded, I guess I would say. So you can do things like make a split tunnel where you say like, okay, I want the address range of my LAN to be part of this, but not anything else. And that means that traffic to your house, to anything in your house, goes through the WireGuard encryption, but traffic out to the bigger internet just goes straight from you to the internet. So, because otherwise you're tunneling all your traffic back and forth through your house, and you may not want that. So so that's what I've actually done. So it's just stuff to my house will go through the WireGuard. Everything else will just go to the internet.
Oh, see, I want it all through the WireGuard.
That's certainly also valid, and that's what you would want if you were like, so I'm going to set up a different profile to use in like airports and coffee shops, right? Yeah. And that one you absolutely want everything to go through.
This is a thing that people decide they want after they've learned how IP sniffers work and sit on a public Wi-Fi access point sometime and just watch the traffic going. Just watch it moving.
Yes, I think I mentioned this on the Patron episode. I became acquainted with TCP dump in the process of setting all this stuff up. And if you just run that thing even on your LAN, and you see all the traffic flying back and forth all the time when you think nothing is actually happening. So I can't even imagine what it looks like on a public Wi-Fi.
It's also stuff like DNS queries, right? Like even stuff that's not necessarily like you. Anyway, it's weird.
Internet of things talking to each other and stuff like that. But what else here? So, one quick little thing I'll mention that was a happy surprise for me that I did not plan. I use my Pi holes here. I use as the DNS servers for my network.
You have a redundant series of Pi holes as DNS servers, as I recall.
Yes. Well, what I mean is all the clients on my LAN see the two Pi holes discreetly as the DNS servers. I use DHCP to distribute that here. So when I set those up as the DNS in my WireGuard config manually, I didn't even think about this working this way, but even when I don't do a full tunnel to my house, when I'm doing that split tunnel where the internet traffic just goes straight out without going through the WireGuard.
Oh, you still get the DNS ad blocking on the Pi hole.
My WireGuard clients are still querying my Pi holes at home as their DNS, so I'm still getting the benefits of the DNS level ad blocking.
Okay,
without the traffic actually having to tunnel through my house, so it's still faster.
You might have just convinced me to set up the VPN to turn on automatically when I leave the house.
That was the moment when I was like, you know what, I'm just going to leave this on all the time.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
So this is WireGuard. Cool. Yeah, it's one of those things that I wasn't sure was going to be useful, but I set it up because it was easy, and then I use it all the time.
Yes. My setup was not easy. I don't recommend it unless you really just want to throw yourself in the deep end and figure out how networking stuff works. The other thing is I'm going on a trip for a lot of August. Yeah. And did not have time I want to replace this edge router, but I didn't have time to like pick a box and set up OpenSense or ViOS or something in the couple weeks I had. But I do have this Pi 4, and then I found out, WireGuard runs extremely fast on a Pi 4. I'm just going to do that.
Yeah, mine's running on a Pi 4, and it's great. It's running in a Docker container on Home Assistant, and it's fantastic. It doesn't require a lot of juice, it turns out.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Okay. Third big drive this summer. We went to Palm Desert, which is 500 miles almost exactly. It's a 9.5 hour drive if there's light traffic.
God, I didn't know it was that long. With
an hour and a half of charging, at least maybe 2 hours if it's slow.
Oh my God, that is a long day. I don't think I realized it was that big of a commitment.
It's a big drive. So we bought a Bolt. We leased a Bolt 2.5 years ago now. We talked about it around the time we got it. Some things have changed. The battery's degraded a little bit. It's still, it's still a 3 charge drive down for the most part.
Is that just anecdotal, or does it actually expose any kind of tools or any diagnostic info where you can see that the runtime is less than it used to be?
It doesn't expose information, but I plugged an ODBE connector into the car so I can pull out the actual capacity and stuff from the data that it doesn't usually provide to users. So this was the hottest summer ever, Brad. I don't know if you've heard that.
I have heard, yes.
It seems bad. I mean, it's probably the hottest summer ever until next summer or the summer after, if we're being real. But it was 115 air temperature Fahrenheit, which is 47 degrees Celsius for our European and Australian friends, on the drive down. And there were some consequences that we hadn't experienced before as a result of that. The on pavement temperature when we would get out in the Central Valley of California, for people who don't know, is very hot, even at the best of times. This was the hottest I've ever experienced it, and the temperature on the pavement was 120 plus most places. I think I took a picture where the car thermometer was like, it's 128 degrees outside. Like all batteries, the car battery has an optimal both discharge and charge temperature, and most cars have some sort of system to help manage that temperature. Usually this comes up in the idea that you have to heat the battery in winter so that you get like the energy you put in to bring the battery up to temperature is less than the energy you lose by running the battery when it's cold.
Okay.
So like often if you live someplace cold, if you live in Vermont or Montana or something, you leave your car plugged in even if it's charged, so that the car's heater will turn on and keep the battery at like 50, 30 Celsius, 25 Celsius, whatever. It's going to be a problem when summers are hot too, because once the batteries get above about 105 degrees, the way they charge starts changing, so they have to cool them as well. And newer, like Teslas, do a heat pump. The heat pump has to have multiple valves to control the airflow, because like the glycol flow, I guess, in the case of the Tesla, because the battery needs to be hotter than you're going to want. Like the heat pump will also serve the cabin of the car, so like the heat pump for the battery, the temperature the battery wants to be at will be 20 degrees warmer than the temperature the cab wants to be at. Sure. So you have to have a multiple. It's a little bit of a complicated thing. Sorry,
real quick. Remind me where your battery is again in the car.
Oh, they're almost always low in the frame. So underneath the frame somewhere low. Like
so the cabin is subject to potentially some effects of whatever's going on down there temperature wise.
It's usually pretty well insulated. Okay. Just because they also want to have firewall in case there's a puncture or something, there's a fire in the battery.
Oh, right. Yes.
The thing on this one is the Bolt has a compressor, like a normal air conditioning compressor. It uses a resistive heater for the winter, which is a little bit less efficient. It's also a cheap car, so you get what you pay for. And I think at the time that they were originally designing the Bolt, the heat pump idea was relatively new. So anyway, the optimal charging temperature seems to be around 100 Fahrenheit, maybe up to 103, 104. It started to slow down dramatically once you got much above 102. It seemed like from what I was pulling from the ODBE sensor and our experience watching the chargers. But by slow, I mean the fastest our car will charge is 50 kilowatts per hour. Or kilowatt hours per hour, I guess.
Yeah, for a total capacity of what?
58 or 60 kilowatt hours.
Okay.
But the Bolt is notorious for actually being a slow charger because Chevrolet was very conservative with the charging profiles. So once you get to about 55 or 60%, it starts to slow down. Just in the same way that like your iPhone slows down once it gets to 80% charge, the Bolt slows down when it gets half full. So by the time you get to like 70%, you're going at 25 or 30 kilowatt hours per hour. And the closer you get to 100, the slower it gets.
Can I jump in real quick and ask if is there any kind of community, like homebrew community for like modifying charging profiles on this or other cars?
I have intentionally not looked at that because I have a leased car and not a purchased car.
Sure, that's smart. I'm definitely not saying you should partake of that, but I would be shocked if there is not some like hardcore car forum out there with people talking about tweaking the charging profiles.
Well, so the part of it is that you don't want to do that because you're going to decrease the battery life, right?
Sure.
Like the harder you charge, the less long the battery is going to cost. And the batteries are 10 or 12 grand, right? They're expensive batteries.
That is the conventional wisdom, of course. But, some people like to throw caution to the wind on things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it is flying close to the sun. The upshot is that when we hit the first charge at Harris Ranch, it was 126 degrees on the pavement, and we charged at about 25 kilowatt hours per hour the entire time, which meant that it took a long time to charge.
That's a pretty big decrease. And like even before we're getting into temperature ranges, like just you describing on a good day, the charging overhead for this trip being, what did you say, like 90 minutes?
An hour and a half is best case, probably.
Like even that sounds like, if you think about it in combustion engine terms, spending an hour and a half stopping at gas stations, like that's already a lot of overhead. So when you like double that, that's rough.
So the experience we've had is that it's usually like one fairly long stop, like 1 45-minute stop, and then a couple of 25 or 30-minute stops.
Actually that's maybe when you think about it in like health terms, getting up and walking around after sitting that long, maybe not the worst thing.
Well, yeah, realistically, the short stops are you get up, you walk, you go to the bathroom, you maybe grab a snack, you walk around for 5 minutes, and then it's time to go, which is it's much more humane than pulling into a gas station, making everybody stay in the car or run into the bathroom, driving through the McDonald's drive-through and blasting off. It means that I often will get honestly, it means that instead of eating a burger and fries, I often will get a salad and sit and eat the salad at a picnic bench at the charging stop. If we're not someplace it's 130 degrees outside.
That sounds like being humane to yourself. I went to school about a 5-hour, a minimum 5-hour drive from my parents' house. And I spent like the entire time visiting family while I was in college, trying to make that drive without stopping.
Yep. And
that's probably not good. You should probably stop every so often and move around because circulation in your legs is a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish that all of the stops for the car were like the 18 or 20-minute stops and not the 45-minute stop. The 45-minute stop is a pain.
That one's a little rough. Especially when it becomes 90 minutes.
Yeah. So the challenge. So we didn't actually do any 90 minutes. We just did shorter stops, which was fine. In retrospect, if we had gone the slightly longer route down 101, which is down the coast, where it's a lot cooler, and also there's less competition for chargers.
Oh man,
we probably would have made it there in the same or slightly faster time.
That's insane that you're like, I mean, we're all having to think about a lot of factors we didn't used to have to think about, but like planning your route partially based on how hot it's going to be to go faster is...
Yeah. Well, and then
there's
the added benefit of 101 being not a road where everybody's going 90 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. So your efficiency is better because you're going 65 or 70 instead of 75 or 80.
Sure.
And just to be clear, like going if you've never driven on I-5 down the Central Valley, if you don't keep up with traffic, you will die.
Yeah. It is nothing but long, straight, flat highway.
And people go, actually it's better these days, but in the old days, people would go 80 mile. Like if it was an 80 mile, if you weren't going 80 miles an hour, people would blow by you. Like they were standing still and you'd get like super tailgated and the whole thing.
That's how it was back home when I was driving between the mountains and Raleigh. Also, it was like 80, 85 or you're get your ass in the slow lane.
North Carolina drivers are notorious too, Brad. I don't want to say anything, but your people don't know how to work an interstate. So the other thing that was happening was the chargers were overheating.
Oh, so, wow.
Like
sure.
we were parked next to like Ionics, which are really incredibly fast chargers, charging cars. And they were saying they were seeing like half the speed because the chargers were running less efficiently because of the intense heat, because a lot of the charging stations don't have shade in the valley. And
that's going to change.
I think that they're going to have to put shade on all of them now, because the ones that were shaded were fine and the ones that weren't were not. But like the thing that was happening to us is the car couldn't keep up. The air conditioning in the car couldn't keep up with keeping the battery cool and keeping the cabin cool. So we had to choose to either turn the AC off in the car while it was charging and sweat, or just take the slow charge. We chose the slow charge. As hot as it gets there, if we'd let the AC, I was concerned that if we let the AC, if we turn the AC off and just turn the car off to charge, by the time we got back in the car, we would never get the car cool again, because it was so insanely hot. And then the other thing is that the chargers were really congested. We drove down the weekend before 4th of July. It was the most competition for chargers I've ever seen. I am never, ever going to do a trip that long, like a 3-charge trip on a, like, just to be real, 3-charge trips probably are not great. Right. Like you want to start with a full battery. You want to drive 250 miles. You want to charge, and then you want to be where you're going.
Yes.
Right. So you want to be like a 350 mile trip, which basically like LA is one stop, and then maybe a top off when you get close to town from San Francisco. The three charge stops, it's stressful to worry about whether there's going to be spaces and how long you're gonna have to wait for a charge spot and all that stuff.
Maybe we made our country too big.
I mean, it's possible. It's the West especially is like I think about when I was a kid, would we have tried to drive 500 miles in a day? No, we would have stopped midway and got a Motel 6 and piled up the next morning and driven 250 miles each day.
I think occasionally, not that I am like planning to move back home, but I think occasionally about what would be involved if I did. Mm-hmm. And part of that would be a cross country drive.
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking about the logistics of driving cross country in an electric car. And that seems like a lot.
Well, so it's not, if you do,
not that I would do that, but I'm just now it's a thought experiment, and that seems maybe not entirely viable.
Well, so we went through the whole process. If the car charged, if like, for example, the car that we're looking at, we talked to a bunch of people at charge stops about how they like their cars. And the one that everybody loves most is the Ioniq, which is a Hyundai. It's one of the faster charging non-Teslas. That's the same brand as the chargers you were talking about. Those are also them, or did I mix up branding? What was the brand of the chargers? The charger brand is Electrify America. That's the ones that we generally find to be the most reliable. Ioniq is a brand of car. I thought you had also said the chargers were Ioniq. No.
Misremembered.
No, so talking to those folks, it charges at 350 kilowatt hours per hour, right?
Oh.
One of the women next to us pulled in with 8%, the same 8% we had. And by the time we were at 27%, she was at 80%. Right.
Yikes.
So, like if you have that, it's literally 15, 20 minutes each time you stop. So you go in, you grab some food, you go to the bathroom, you eat, you unplug and go. It just means that you eat sitting in the car at the charge stop or in the restaurant or whatever, rather than shoveling food down your mouth while you're driving down the highway at 80 miles an hour, which is probably an improvement for everyone on the road. So I wouldn't hesitate to do, when Gina and I moved out here, we did 4 500 mile days, which was basically 10 hours of driving a day in the U-Haul. And, like I would do that in a heartbeat with not our car. It's just the Bolt charges slow.
Sure.
I'm never driving on a holiday weekend again. When we returned on Tuesday, first Tuesday in August, it was fine. There were no competition for chargers. Okay. Everything was available. It was a piece of cake. And then like, it's funny. I was talking to Norm about this because he has a Model 3, and the charging situation for road trips on the Tesla is such, because the Tesla software talks to the battery and knows what the battery is, and it knows where all the superchargers are. It just is like, okay, you're going here. Here's where I think you're going to charge. If you do better on your consumption, then you can go a little bit further to this next one. If you don't, then you can stop here. The problem with the non-Teslas is that we would often be at like 30% battery where it wanted us to, where the tool that I used to plan routes wanted us to stop. And that meant we would miss 20% of our, or 18% of our fastest charging time. So like the time from 10% to 50% is the fastest charging you can do. And you want to min max that time. It's like some video game business happening here, right? So you want to get as close to 10% as you can and then charge up to like 50 or 60% rather than starting at 28% and going to 70%. So there's a tool, we've talked about it before, called a Better Route Planner, which is an app. It's a website. You can hook it up to the ODB data out of the port in the car, but it's still way fiddlier than it needs to be for route planning. And it doesn't account for things like the bolt being, I mean, it accounts for the bolt being shitty at charging, but not in a way that it lets you min max that as efficiently as possible. On the way back, we ended up doing the whole trip in 10.5 hours, which is, I think, the best time we've ever done.
Oh, okay. That's respectable. A lot of what you're describing sounds like it's just a lot of teething pains in this very extremely distinctive category of car. You know what I mean? Like this type of driving, this technology has not been around that long in the grand scheme of how long cars have existed. So hopefully a lot of this will get worked out. I
think it's a combination of that and also the fact that there's not so one of the big changes that's happened in the 3 years we've been doing this drive is that there's a lot more chargers on that corridor now, like all the way through. It used to be that there was a charger dead spot that was 80 miles long from Grapevine to Santa Clarita. And now there's chargers at the top of the Grapevine. There's chargers, there's multiple chargers all the way down, not quite at every stop, but every second or third exit on the way now. It seems like you can find some sort of charging. So missing one or having one that's full and going on to the next one or whatever isn't as much of a disaster as it would have been, say, 3 years ago.
That's good.
There's also a lot more electric cars on the road, so there's a lot more competition for those spaces.
Sorry, real quick. I know we covered this when we did the full episode on this, but what's the payment structure generally like for these third-party charging stations?
So you have an app. You either pay per time spent at the plug or per kilowatt hour. Typically, it cost me $25 to drive 500 miles, not counting what I have in the car when I leave my house in the morning. So I think we paid $16 on the way up on Tuesday for 3 charges.
Okay.
Which is like, you couldn't do that for any gas car, I don't think.
Yeah. Just kind of stuff that we have covered here that seems like it needs to change or will change, like cooling of batteries and charging stations. I mean, it's a sad commentary on the state of things, but I assume that car manufacturers are going to maybe start thinking more about cooling batteries as well as heating them.
Yeah, I mean, they already do think about cooling batteries, but I think the question is the cooling going to be adequate for the challenges of the changing climate?
That's what I really meant. They're going to think more about increasing the range of cooling they can handle.
Well, yeah, and also stuff like not putting the chargers and the charging spots in direct sun, right? Like even when it was 105 degrees out and we were in a shaded spot, the air conditioner in the car didn't have to work as hard to keep the car cool as it did when we were in the direct sun and the car temperature was reading 130 degrees. It's a weird. It's interesting because like I really enjoy the min-maxing aspect of trying to figure out where the stops should be and all that. It drives my wife absolutely bonkers. So
it sounds fun to me too when you talked about, even though a better route planner is maybe not ideal. That sounds like a fun efficiency problem of charting all that stuff out.
Yeah, it's exactly what I like about like Satisfactory and Factorio and all those kinds of things. Yeah. And it's like she's like, I don't want to do calculus in my head to figure out where I should charge. So no, thank you.
That was the other big category besides battery cooling that I was thinking about that hopefully will get better is maybe the other manufacturers will try to come up with a more Tesla-like solution for that sort of thing. Although based on the little bit I've done looking into the quality of car manufacturer designed entertainment systems and entertainment software,
it's bad.
Maybe relying on them to create that kind of software is not great.
Yeah, it's weird because like you'd think that car information would be available through CarPlay, and I don't know if it's just that the version of CarPlay that's in my car is old, or if they the specs for CarPlay. I went and looked at it before the show, and it's unclear without the developer license, which is different for CarPlay stuff because they only license Ford and Mercedes and places like that. It's unclear if that information is even accessible, or if it's that the manufacturers are choosing not to pass that through to apps potentially. I understand why they wouldn't give your phone app access to the two-way communication with the car's like telemetry and all of that stuff. But it does seem like having apps that have that information would make it much easier to find charging. I also am curious if, like, I did a little bit of research before we left to find out if ABRP is still the best option for this. If there's some other tool, I would love to hear it. That if people have had better success with some other tool, I would love to hear about it, because it's like I said, it's interesting because Gina and I can set up the app on our phones exactly the same way with exactly the same data and exactly the same route, and she will get completely different results than I do.
What you want.
Yeah. Like, which is, it's I don't know. It's just frustrating. It's frustrating when you know that there's a better route that you should be able to make, and it won't confirm or deny. It won't let you just say, hey, go here. I want to go here and charge. I think that this one's going to be better, and it won't tell you what the time split is. So anyway,
deterministic route planning or bust.
Yeah, exactly. All I want is simple determinism. Brad, what's up with coffee? How you doing in the cold brew?
What's up with coffee is pretty good, man.
I
don't know if you've heard.
Look, I did a French press the entire time I was in the desert. Mm-hmm. It turns out I like a French press. Who knew?
Yeah. I've gotten some French press experience here. Like quick coffee update. I'm like 2 weeks now into daily cold brew. Mm-hmm. So I thought I would maybe touch on where I'm at with that.
And your strategy has been to make concentrate and then dilute it with hot water to warm it up so it's drinkable as a hot coffee, rather than like you're not making cold iced coffee with your cold brew. No.
Okay. Yes. So getting the ratio where I want it, I'm not sure I'm actually there yet, but I'm getting closer. Like that's been probably the hardest part is mm-hmm. figuring that out. What to do the brewing in is also a point of contention.
Yes.
I think those are probably the two big variables I'm still dialing in. I started out trying to do a very concentrate.
Yeah, that's more challenging, right?
Yeah. I'm talking like 1 to 4 coffee to water, 1 to 5. But it's like at that point, it almost gets hard to immerse all the grounds in enough water to actually do the brew properly.
Oh yeah, I assume you have to just pour the grounds into the coffee and then filter them out, right?
Yes, pretty much. So like I wanted something that concentrated because I like the coffee hot, and you need to add a lot of hot water to liquid that's been in the fridge, obviously, to make it hot.
That makes sense.
But yeah, it has kind of turned out to not be super practical to do something that concentrated. You had recommended a 1 to 10.
That's what I usually do but I do iced and then add milk to it usually.
Yeah, so you don't have the heat component to worry about. I've seen everything from like a 1 to 7, 1 to 8, 1 to 10 out there. Every coffee site has its own opinions about what is ideal. Also, the coarseness of the grind is another one that I still haven't fully settled on. Some places say do as coarse as your grinder can do, and then others are like, if you actually put it at about like 80% coarse or something, it's maybe going to be a little sweeter.
Well, if you're doing a paper filter versus a metal mesh, like if you're using a French press to strain out the grounds, you want it coarse so you don't have chunks that come through, right?
Yeah.
If you're running it through a paper filter, you can go finer and get more extraction. It's probably how you make your more concentrate actually.
Yeah. So there's the concentrate ratio. The other ratio to think about is the drinkable ratio. And for that, I have mostly seen recommendations between like 1 to 15 to 1 to 18 ish.
And this is the amount of concentrate to hot water you're adding?
Yes. Well, no, that's the eventual ratio of coffee to water. So for example, if you're doing a 1 to 9, coffee to water to brew, then you double the amount of liquid. You do half and half boiling water and concentrate.
Got it.
After the fact. And that's where I've landed. I've been doing 1 to 9. And then when I pour the concentrate to heat it up to drink it, I'll put in an amount and then just double it. That makes the math very easy.
Oh, okay.
And our kettle goes to 212, obviously.
Yeah.
So I jacked it all the way up, and I get what I just barely consider hot enough to drink liquid out of fridge cooled concentrates and boiling water.
That sounds pretty good.
Basically, like it's I have to drink it pretty quick or it starts getting lukewarm in a way I don't love. I don't know how you feel about less than hot coffee, but
I just drank my last sip and it's probably about 140 right now. It's not great.
Yeah. It's a little. It's like flat beer. It's just not. It does not go.
We did a story about this. There was a study done about this that we wrote up and tested years and years ago, where there's a sweet spot above 160 Fahrenheit, and then once you get below 100, like colder is actually good.
Yes, I could totally see that.
But yeah,
like you want hot or cold. You don't want in the middle.
No.
I'm finding at that ratio. I'm still finding like the body. See, I'm able to. I'm using what I learned in that. Coffee episode a couple weeks ago. The body is still quite rich, I find, at that concentration.
So you could add more hot water theoretically to that.
I could, but also I love how kind of thick and velvety it is.
It's got a nice mouthfeel when you get a good immersion brew, right?
It tastes so much better. I can't. I'm actually using Dunkin' Donuts whole beans right now for this, and even that is quite good.
Okay,
with the cold brew, I'm finding.
Have you done your homework? Have you gone to the fancy coffee shop yet?
Not yet. But sure enough, you were right. I looked at the Dunkin' Donuts. It's a medium roast, like you said.
Yep.
All the classic American coffee is a medium roast.
Yep. That's what people like.
Yes. So I think I'm pretty happy with the ratio I've got going for now. I have been using the French press daily to make enough for myself and my partner.
So you do it at night or the morning? You do it in the morning and then it sits for 24 hours? Because that's the time it extracts is the other variable.
There are so many variables. There's coarseness of grind. There's ratio. There's how long you steep it.
Yeah.
I think you had recommended not to go past 24 hours. I've kind of been aiming for like 18 to 20 hours.
That seems right. I think in my experience, for at least cold brew for iced coffees, there's not a lot of difference between any more than 12 and less than 24. Once you get beyond 24, you get to start getting a little bitter in my experience.
Interesting. Maybe I should start trying like 12 and see if I can actually tell a difference. Because if there's not much to be gained by going longer, then maybe I could simplify things. Because planning the lead time for this has been a whole thing. Like I'm essentially making 2 days from now's coffee today. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, I got to put this in and let it go for most of a day and then harvest. I've been using the term harvest the coffee. Wow. But I do that the night before. So basically I'm like the coffee I'm making Wednesday afternoon, I'm going to drink Friday morning, basically.
Well, so are you going to invest? Are you going to invest in a dedicated device for this?
I've thought about it. A lot of people like the toddy one. There's also some recommendations for the OXO cold brew. I think we talked about those a little bit.
Yeah, the OXO is the one. Like the OXO seems good. The toddy is too big. At least the one that I had was ridiculously big.
Yeah, and they're both like countertop.
Got really icky.
Ugh. Yeah, and we're pretty short on counter space also. So I'm going to keep trying to work with what we have for now. I did not have a lot of French press. I had zero French press experience before I started doing this. Mm-hmm. Cleaning a French press every day has already gotten old enough that I don't think I want to do it anymore.
You know that the bottom unscrews, right?
Yeah. Yes, okay. But that's exactly why it takes a little bit longer than I want to deal with every day to take the whole thing apart and scrub it all. And
I just unscrewed it and put it in the dishwasher.
Oh, okay. Well, we don't run the dishwasher every day for two people. So
that makes sense.
That's not an option.
Fair.
Anyway, I think I'm going to ditch the French press. I might have mentioned this before. We have a rumble jar.
What's a rumble jar? That sounds like you get in it with the pink ladies down at the sock hop.
I'm not gonna. Leave that there.
What's a rumble jar, Brad?
I'll just leave that there. I'm trying to pull up their website so I can give you some actual measurements. It's just a metal cylinder with a little rubber lid that snaps onto it.
Oh, is it a thing that you put in a bigger pitcher or something?
It is exactly sized to fit the average mason jar.
Oh, okay. So like a 1 quart mason jar.
So with the rubber lid on, it actually hugs the mouth of the mason jar and kind of not too tightly, but it fits snugly enough to kind of sit. It's just a metal cylinder with some extremely small machined micro holes.
Yeah.
I'm again trying to find. I could tell you how big the holes are if I can just find.
But I mean, the idea is that you have a metal filter that lets you do your coffee without having to do.
Oh, I found it. Yes. Excuse me. 200 micron holes.
Oh, those are laser holes.
Those are tiny holes.
Yeah,
they're tiny holes. They're almost too small to see unless you hold it up close to your face.
A cone.
So the reason I wasn't using it before, just to get a little bit more into the nitty gritty, when I was making that super concentrate or trying to, that small amount of water, because it's such a thin cylinder, it's a pretty tall column of grounds.
Yeah.
It was not even enough water to fully immerse the grounds.
That won't work.
But now that I'm doing 9-to-1, I think that actually will be enough. So I'm going to try that, because then you would just take a giant mason jar, fill the rumble jar with coffee, pour all the water in, let it sit. Much easier.
You can also, so the Hario that I use, I wasn't grinding fine enough for, like, when I couldn't get all of the grounds submerged in the amount of water I was supposed to be using, it was because I wasn't grinding the coffee fine enough. Because the finer ground coffee will be less volume.
So is that why everybody recommends coarse grind for cold brew, the filtering, not because of some extractive factor?
It's because it's easier to filter out the grounds. And you don't want to over extract. Like, over extracting tastes bad.
So that might be my last big question, and that's certainly something that's hard to measure, is not just for the quality of the coffee, but especially how much caffeine I'm consuming. I'm wondering, like, are you definitely getting more caffeine the longer you steep? Do you know? Or is that something
no idea.
That levels off after 12 hours?
Haven't the foggiest.
Okay. Anecdotally, it's hard to evaluate your own perception, but I feel like I'm probably more caffeinated than I used to be.
I don't ever feel like I can see through time after drinking the cold brew that I make.
Okay.
But also caffeine doesn't, like, I'm not super affected by caffeine.
Okay. I am. That's something I really need to be conscious of. So anyway, that's probably the last thing that I'm really trying to dial in, but I enjoy the coffee a lot more. It tastes significantly better to me.
The thing about the cold brew is it is a really reliable way to make a really nice cup of coffee.
Yes. It's a little fiddlier in the morning because I have to get up. I get up, filter water, and then boil the water in the kettle, and then get the scale out and have to, like, measure out the concentrate to the, it's just slightly more work even after the fact to drink it, but it's worth it.
Tastes good. There you go. So I think that's a show. There's 3 updates, 3 things we've been doing lately that, like, probably in retrospect, maybe we could have gotten a whole episode out of Wireguard, but I feel like VPNs are a weird space because they're like niche. Like, I didn't think I needed one until I had one, and then I was like, oh, turns out it's pretty good.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, that may have been a little jumbled, that section. Like, it's something that I understand just well enough to start worrying that I don't understand it well enough to explain it to somebody. But it's been pretty awesome. And I feel like there are more and more use cases for the average person as people are running, like, Plex or Jellyfin at home and want to be able to access that. And
judging by the number of podcasters that are advertising VPN software on a week-to-week basis, apparently they're very popular. So
I just as another basic piece of information, we should mention, like, this does not replace a commercial VPN service. This is just VPNing into your house. All your traffic is still going through your ISP from your house.
Yeah, if you're using a VPN to, say, mask your IP address because you're doing something that you don't want any multinational media conglomerates to know about, this WireGuard solution will not solve that problem for you.
Yes. Although you can, and people on our Discord do this, and it seems like it's getting easier all the time, you can just, like, make your own VPN of that nature by getting a VPS, a virtual private server. Yeah. You can just set up WireGuard on that, and then you do have a secure tunnel to the internet, although then you're subject to whoever provides that cloud instance. And instead of a VPN company, you're dealing with a cloud company. So,
well, and you have to maintain it yourself. Yes. And, like, you're running your $5 a month Linode, it probably costs more than just paying somebody to do VPN for you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the bigger concerns there are people worry about commercial VPN providers, like, logging what they do and stuff like that. Maybe they're not as private as they are advertised to be.
Don't do illegal stuff on the internet. Is the other way to handle this.
You could just take that tack. Anyway.
You know what's not illegal, though?
What's that?
Supporting your favorite podcast, Brad.
Oh, that is both legal and morally correct.
Yeah. Did you know that Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod is a 100% listener supported show?
I did know that.
We don't take, like, you can listen to us talk about how awesome WireGuard is because you know that we've not taken any advertising money to talk about VPNs.
Yes.
But we do that because listeners like you support the show through our Patreon at patreon.com/techpod. Again, it's patreon.com/techpod, where for $5 a month, you get access to the fabulous patron exclusive episode, as well as access to the TechPod Discord, which is full of beautiful nerds just like you, who have a lot of like an incredible amount of information to share about a wide variety of topics, from like mechanical calculators all the way down to setting up audio gear and getting good lights for your battle station at home. Like the coffee conversation that happened after the coffee episode 2 weeks ago, it's still going. Mm-hmm. Like this week, I think we're going to have to do a coffee channel for the spinoff from the coffee conversation. I liked that midway through that conversation about the coffee stuff, there was like a scotch and whiskey fork of that conversation. I was just
about to bring that up. I didn't mean to hijack the coffee chat with whiskey chat, but that was fun too.
Yeah. Look, if you want to put some dirt in your booze, I'm not going to judge you, but yeah, it was coffee time, Brad. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a wonderful group of people, and we are lucky to have you all as part of the community around the weird show that we do. As always, we like to thank all of our patrons, but especially our executive producer tier patrons, including Nick Johnston, Paddle Creek Games makers of Fractured Veil, Andrew Slosky, Jordan Lippett, Bunny Fiend, Just Wedge 3.0, Joel Krauska, Twinkie the General Contractor, David Allen, James Kamek, and Pantheon, makers of the HS3 high-speed 3D printer. So yeah, that's us this week.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We will be back next week with another Tech Pod. See y'all then.